Hello, my name is Bren. Welcome to Across the River and Into the Books. I recently got my Penguin classics back together for the first time after many years, and I've unpacked them all. Probably should have videoed myself taking them out of storage, but I didn't do that, and I can't feign the surprise at encountering them for the first time in many years. But nevertheless, I have been sorting through my books by publisher. I don't always arrange my shelves in this way. I don't have a particular preference even for Penguin classics, although I do love them. But I unpacked them all, and I thought that I would make a video discussing and going through the shelves together, and something I haven't done before. So I thought I'd give it a crack, and I hope you enjoy the video. So let's just start with a bit of an overview. As you can see, I have on the topmost shelves the Penguin classics in the good old black spine. Next one down, I've got a combination of Penguin modern classics in the mint green and in the white and the silver. And then I've got some of our beloved, stodgy, reliable orange spine classics. I've also got some minis there. And then as we go down, we've got some mass market paperbacks on the left, including the Great Ideas series and a few other series-based Penguin classics. And then on the right, we've got more of newer releases and some oversized editions and some other imprints that fall under Penguin. And then going down on the left, the Penguin Deluxe editions and some other miscellaneous Penguin stuff. So I started off by trying to arrange these somewhat in chronological order, but I kind of gave up on that quite quickly. It's just really wonderful to have all of these books again. So, some good old ancient stuff there. And I might pick out a couple of books here and there for each shelf and just discuss them. And if anyone's interested in seeing more detailed bookshelf tours, then I'd be happy to do that if anyone's interested in that. So yeah, it's really wonderful introductions, most of these. Let's have a look. Aristotle's Poetics. I mean, this is just probably the earliest work of literary criticism, and his idea of catharsis is just so useful and influential. He argues that when we watch theatre or a film or read a book, we are experiencing the emotions of the characters if it's well done, if it's well executed. But at the same time, while we might laugh or feel very sad and even cry, we know that it's actually not our real lives. And so we are able to excise these emotions and sort of replenish our emotional well-being, but yet not suffer those things in actuality. Let's have a look. Herman Melville, this is going to maybe be a bit of a hot take, but Moby Dick is many people's favorite book. So I'm told. I don't know, at times it feels like you're stuck at a dinner party next to a guest who is rambling on with a very fishy breath that I find to be quite wearisome. Did I say rambling? I meant a lot of rambling, like digressions like you wouldn't believe. Like 45 minutes, 45 pages of digressions about all of the things we thought we knew about whales, but didn't know. Like they weren't even right. So yeah, it's a slog. The brutality of the gory detail of the killing of the whales is painful for anyone who loves animals, really. I don't know how you guys hold the camera still and take out books. It's really impressive when I see people doing that, and much underrated skill. Well, if sitting next to Moby Dick is like sitting next to a slightly fishy and rambling dinner guest, then Anti-Oedipus is like being at a party and stuck in conversation with someone who's perhaps had a little too much party condiments, let's say, and is literally foaming at the mouth and spewing forth a gigantic volume of all kinds of theories and discourses, and you just can't seem to get away from said party guest. An apparent conflict arises between desiring machines and the body without organs. Every coupling of machines, every production of a machine, every sound of a machine running becomes unbearable to the body without organs. Beneath its organs, its senses, there are larvae and loathsome worms, and a guard at work messing it all up or strangling it by organizing it. No, thank you. Here we've got the Penguin Modern Classics, silver, the lovely mint green, and then a bunch of minis, like I said. I just love reading. Nick Hornby said that reading is like petrol for him. You know, it's books are the fuel that keeps him going, and I think for many of us that love literature, it's it's the oxygen that we breathe, and our library reflects this lifelong inner journey, this sense of interiority and the plurality of voices that we have become familiar with. And I love to look at people's libraries, and that's why I thought that, you know, sharing some of these books might be of interest. Right, let's go back to the Modern Classics shelf. Plenty of Camus. I think there was a Simpsons episode, and one of the characters said, Camus can do, but Sartre is smarter. Well, Camus does just fine for me. He's not one of the stars in my the constellation of my library, but he's more of a supporting role. These two books, I think, in terms of his fiction, are interesting to compare, because The Outsider, well, it is very much, you know, classically, as everyone knows, this existentialist book about being alone in the universe and not being scared to just live your life and not think too hard about the consequences of your actions, because none of it means anything in the end. But Camus, then, I think he shifts into, when you read The Plague, which is a book about a small town in Algeria that comes under the cosh of a plague. A virus spreads through the town, and actually it's through working together that people create meaning in this wider universe. You know, this town is sort of surrounded by desert, and the desert, I think, sort of symbolizes this, you know, the cosmos in which we live and are surrounded by, you know, almost unfathomable amounts of empty space. But then Camus seems to shift from this sense of, well, it's all absurd and meaningless to, well, we create meaning through the relationships that we have and the sense of community, and that helping each other in times of crisis creates real meaning, because you mean something to somebody else and they depend on you and you depend on them. And I think that that's quite a beautiful shift in Camus' philosophy. James Baldwin, Giovanni's Room. What a wonderful, sad, luminous, Paris-based novel of unrequited love or doomed love between two men in a time when they were unable to be together and be free. Yeah, then as I said, I've got these... I love the penguin orange spines. They don't make them anymore, but they're just so reliable and kind of hearty, like a big bowl of broth on a winter's day. Let's have a look at this one. James Joyce, collected poems. Not known for his poems, of course, and this is a very slim volume, but surprisingly, one of my favorite lines of poetry ever is a James Joyce line, and it's in this book, and it says, "Ghost fires from heaven's far verges faint illume." And I just think that's beautiful. Ghost fires from heaven's far verges faint illume. I think that poem was dedicated to his daughter. Not everything here I love. Some Clarice Lispector stories are about as exciting as a bag of dry oats, but others are very gripping and poignant and leave you white-knuckled and breathless at the end. She was a Brazilian writer, Susan Sontag. Against interpretation, she was only 30 when she published this book, and it's really astounding, her erudition and her range of knowledge, things about philosophy and cinema and literature. She once she had this beautiful apartment in New York, and critic James Wood, once when he was a young critic and Sontag was still alive, he interviewed her, and she said, "Oh, these books," and just kind of like with a sweep of the hand, like referred to this gigantic library that she owned, like floor to ceiling books just all through her house. And she said, "Oh, these. Oh, I've read all of these." Jacques Derrida, on the other hand, gave an interview in his house and stepped into this gigantic library, and the interviewer asked him if he'd read all of the volumes in his library, and he said, "No, I've only read a small handful, 3 or 4. Of course, that was not true, but he was really emphasizing the importance of rereading, and Vladimir Nabokov says that a good reader is a rereader, and I think rereading is just so rewarding. And to take an example, Virginia Woolf, Mrs. Dalloway, what an astounding, translucent book, and rereading this book just has given me so much pleasure and insight. Okay, now coming down here, as I said, there are a lot of mass market paperbacks here, as well as this series of Penguin Great Ideas. I won't linger too long on this shelf. Persuasion. I read this book in the English countryside on New Year's Eve one year, and it was raining outside and cold and dark, and I just stayed up until dawn, racing through the final stages of this incredibly gripping novel. Another Austen, Lady Susan. I actually reviewed this for the Open Letters Review, so shout out to Steve Donahue for believing in my work, and it was a lot of fun rereading Austen's Juvenilia. It's not a very good book, but it was quite fun to review. And then moving through these, then get into this shelf, which is a bit more trade paperbacks, hardbacks, and more contemporary stuff. Yeah, I love Zadie Smith. Nick Hornby, this is a really fun book if you're a book lover and you just love to read about reading and like books about books. Nick Hornby, I think it's over the course of 2 years, he just buys loads of books and writes entertainingly about them. You just can't go wrong. It's a winning formula. He's always complaining about buying too many books and trying not to buy more, and that's, I think, quite relatable. Terence Hayes, he's an American writer and painter and poet. This is actually a self-portrait on the cover of the book. And he talks about the slippery atmospherics of voice. And I think that is just such a beautiful phrasing for what I love in literature, especially in fiction and in poetry and in some, non-fiction forms like memoir, that you really immerse yourself in the atmosphere of voice and the writer or the narrator's voice. And it's just, there's nothing like it, that sense of time unfolded through consciousness. You just can't get that from other mediums like film. It's more external. And Terence Hayes, really would recommend checking him out. Okay, down here we've got some Penguin Deluxe editions. Got the Robert Fagles, Iliad and the Odyssey, Anna Karenina, a bunch of good stuff here. I'll just highlight this, I suppose, Zadie Smith. I mentioned her just a minute ago, and she is, just an exceptional writer. I think I love her nonfiction, her criticism, most of all. She writes with scintillating style and insight into many, many writers that I love, and I always look out for Zadie Smith and her nonfiction especially.